Biolit, enlighten, uncover, integrate, because life is never separate from knowledge.
The Great Fire of London, Janet Hardy Gould.
In the end, Pepys finds the Lord Mayor. "Ah, here you are." Pepys cries angrily. "Everybody is looking for you." "Hello, Pepys," says the Lord Mayor. "Tm very tired. I must sit down. Here is a letter from the king," says Pepys. "You must blow up the buildings in front of the fire." "I know," says the Lord Mayor. "I want to pull down houses near the fire, but nobody listens to me. People don't want to lose their homes." Just then some of the king's soldiers arrive. "Lord Mayor, we are here to blow up houses," says one of the soldiers. "Yes," says the Lord Mayor, "good luck. I'm going home now. I'm tired and dirty, and I want to change my clothes, but..." "Lord Mayor." "Wait, call the soldiers." "Goodbye," says the Lord Mayor. The men blow up some houses, but they are very near to the fire. "It's no good," says Pepys to the soldiers. "You must blow up buildings one street away from the fire." The soldiers pull down houses and blow up shops. It is now 9 o'clock on Sunday evening. Pepys and more go home. For 3 more days the Great Fire of London burns. Frightened people and hungry rats run madly through the streets. The fire spreads to the most important houses and churches in the city. Old St. Paul's Cathedral burns day and night. Day after day the firefighters and soldiers work to stop the fire. On the 4th day the wind changes direction and the fire slowly stops. The firefighters stand and watch for the first time in days. Many people come back to look for their houses and shops, but they find nothing. At home Pepys begins to write about the fire in his diary. He knows the government must work a lot to help the people of London. 5 days later, Pepys and more climb up the tower of the last church in the centre of London. They look over the city. "What a black day," says Pepys. "Over 13,000 houses and 90 churches, and now there is nothing." "Don't feel bad about that," says Moore. "Instead, let's remember something important. Only 9 people are dead. 50 years later, London is a very different city. There are no more old narrow streets in the city centre, but beautiful wide streets instead, and a new St. Paul's Cathedral stands not far from the banks of the River Thames. But the most important thing is, there are no more rats." Smoke moved across London like a living organism. From the narrow streets near the River Thames, flames consumed wood, oil, cloth, and human memory with terrifying efficiency. The city had become a biological experiment in combustion. Oxygen fed the fire. Wind accelerated it. Heat transferred from house to house through conduction, convection, and radiation until entire streets ignited almost simultaneously. Samuel Pepys ran through the chaos searching for the Lord Mayor. At last, he found him exhausted among frightened citizens and collapsing buildings. "Everybody is looking for you," Pepys cried. The mayor could barely stand. Around him, people refused to destroy their own homes even as the fire advanced closer. Fear had overtaken reason, a deeply human response that modern neuroscience would associate with survival instincts controlled by the amygdala. Then the king's soldiers arrived carrying gunpowder. Their mission sounded destructive: blow up houses. But scientifically, it was an attempt to create a firebreak, an empty space without fuel where combustion could no longer continue. The logic was simple. Fire survives only when 3 conditions exist: heat, oxygen, and fuel. Remove one element, and the chain reaction collapses. Yet they acted too late. The flames spread through London like an epidemic, and perhaps that is the most haunting word connected to this story: contagion. The word comes from the Latin contagio, meaning touching together. In biology, the word contagion describes the transmission of disease from one organism to another, a process where infection spreads through contact, proximity, or movement within a population. But standing in 17th century London, Pepys witnessed another kind of contagion: not bacteria, not viruses, panic. Fear moved through the city faster than flames themselves. Crowds ran through the streets carrying possessions, animals, children, and rumors. Hungry rats escaped burning houses and disappeared into the darkness of London's alleys. At the time, nobody fully understood the biological danger surrounding them, but history would later reveal something terrifying. Rats carried fleas, fleas carried Yersinia pestis, the bacterium responsible for plague epidemics. The Great Fire destroyed much of London, but the extreme heat also reduced enormous rat populations living within the old crowded streets. In an indirect and tragic way, destruction altered the ecology of disease within the city itself. 4 days, Old St. Paul's Cathedral burned beneath the black sky, stone cracked from thermal stress. Lead melted and flowed through the streets like silver rivers. Ash entered the lungs of survivors. Smoke particles darkened the atmosphere above the Thames. Then, on the 4th day, the wind changed, the fire slowed. For the first time in days, the firefighters stood still and watched silence return to London. Later, Pepys climbed above the ruined city and looked across the blackened landscape. More than 13,000 houses were gone. 90 churches had disappeared into ash, and yet, decades later, London transformed. The medieval maze of narrow streets was replaced by wider roads designed to slow future fires. Urban planning evolved. Public sanitation improved. Architecture changed. A new St. Paul's Cathedral rose above the city beside the River Thames, and slowly, the rats disappeared too. Sometimes civilization evolves the same way organisms do, through catastrophe, adaptation, and survival. In biology and in history, survival is never simply about resisting destruction, it is about what rises after the fire.